Well, good time of day to all of you, my chess friends. This is Grandmaster Alex Yermolinsky. Welcome back. What every Russian schoolboy knows live. Okay, by popular demand, the subject of today is Magnus Carlsen. Right. Yeah, I guess the rumors of his demise. Yeah, okay, you know. Slightly exaggerated. No, well, yeah, he had a very rough stretch beginning with that tournament in Norway. I mean, actually, the entire Grand Chess Tour until the last 3 rounds of the London tournament, it was just one never-ending nightmare for Magnus Carlsen. And I get the idea why. Well, Magnus actually did go public, however, awkwardly, when he said during the set, he actually tweeted, "Pardon me, I'm old 20th century." Obviously, yeah. Yeah, we get started. Sorry, I forgot to switch the scene. Now, yeah, he posted on Twitter that during this World Cup in Baku that well, it's a great tournament and he thinks that's the way to go. And there is much more to it than it seemed. It wasn't an idle kind of statement. I think Magnus was simply going stir crazy over the situation he found himself when he had to play same people over and over again in tournaments sparsely placed, like months apart. He's a 25-year-old guy, with this. Obviously has a lot of energy, and people like this should play chess. But I mean, as it happened before to some great players, there are always some other guys older and wiser who give you advice because they have your best interest in mind, and they manipulate you and they run their life for you. And I mean, it happened before to many people. I actually admire how Magnus approached that last tournament of the Grand Tour series in London. He simply just he set his jaw, like ground his teeth and refused to lose, refused to give his opponent even an inch. He didn't care, he didn't care that he wasn't able to win games. Yeah, the technique wasn't there. The positions like he had against Adams and Anand, they had to be wins. Obviously, well, something was off, still off with his game. And but well, he managed to just carry on, and then round 7 he finally broke through. Very difficult endgame against Nakamura. I made a video on this entire game, and when it's published, I hope you guys will watch it. But by popular demand, I must move on and talk about the last 2 games. Now, the last 2 games Magnus played in the tournament in London. In round 8, he met with Veselin Topalov. Obviously, Topalov beat Carlsen twice in 2 tournaments prior to that, the first 2 tournaments of the Grand Chess Tour. Well, first game we all know that Magnus forgot about the clock, but the second game, the first round of Sinquefield Cup, was really a smashing victory for Veselin. But chess now moves so fast, like in old days, we would say, all right, Lasker, we would say, I wasn't around, but I assume people would say, all right, Lasker defeated Capablanca in the last round of 1914 St. Petersburg tournament. So they meet again 10 years later in New York, and it's like Lasker. That's like it's going to be a premier matchup. Things moved slow, excruciatingly slow. I mean, we live here in the age of the internet. Everything just has to be like this, like the movies, if you watch movies, everything happens very fast now. There is no room for dialogue or thinking. Speaking of not movies even, I don't know, I was just browsing on Netflix the other night and I just thought, let me watch this thing, There was not even the first episode with regular actors. That was the pilot episode of the first Star Trek season of 1966. It had a lot of different actors. Captain Kirk was played by another guy, much taller and stronger looking guy, but anyway, than William Shatner. Anyways, but Leonard Nimoy was there. But the point is, I sat through like 1 hour of this and I enjoyed it, but I realized, the time moved so slowly. Everything was like thinking and dialogue and all this. I mean, you can't imagine stuff like this on television these days. So, why am I saying all this? That simply because that Vassiline's success in the summer of 2015 is far removed from us now. And we like just totally, forgot about it. And I guess the Vassilin himself kind of felt it. So, I don't know, he came to this game already entrenched deeply in the last place in the tournament, knowing that, he's out, he's not going to win any money in the overall count because there are only 3 prizes over there, and he needed, obviously, points. No, he needed at least a 50% result to count on anything, but, he was like, -4. Anyway, the game itself, Magnus played so-so opening, and it was very easy for White to play this position, but Vassilin found a way to misplay it and ended up in this situation. Alright, so here we go. Now, what was the question? The question was, the game went on from this point for almost 50 moves. Now, just before it reached 50 moves and Topalov could claim a draw, Carlsen finally won the pawn on e5, and that was sort of like anticlimactic, as we will see. After that, in the rook endgame, the game routine ended in a routine draw, literally a few moves later, and Topalov's mild time trouble never really bothered him. So the talk was, okay, so after they played, oh boy, I don't know how many moves they played, I just have to, can I jump in 5? Oh no, that's too much. I jump to the end. Okay, I'll try to just jump. Just jump. Okay, so, alright, so that was already 36 moves into this. Okay, at this moment, 46 moves into this going roundabout in circles. And then finally, by the way, is anyone there? Does anybody say hello? You guys forgot your manners. I'm monitoring this chat room, and there is just like no one there. Seriously? Not a single person? Alright, I guess you guys, you're Netflix guys. You're not television guys. So you don't want to be up there at certain hour. And, you're just counting on this to be recorded so you can watch it at your convenience. Alright. Yeah, but where is the interaction then? Anyway, I'm following the script, sent to me. I forgot by whom, those things that get forwarded to me. Anyway, the idea was to first talk about this, because Magnus was very unhappy that he had to take on e5. He said the 50-move rule is outdated, and he had a clear winning plan in bringing his king around and chasing away the knight from d3 and then grabbing the pawn on e5 without the exchanges. Oh, finally, one guy. Oh boy. Oh, thank you for being here. You made my day. Okay, I'll drink to that. Oh, cheers. All right. So, let me find this game. Yeah. So anyway, so the talk was that this position gives black great winning chances. Because white's pieces kind of misplaced. I agree with that. I really see no reason for white to position the pieces that Topalov did. But, I mean, the 50 move rule, it was challenged before, right? When it was found first by computers that there are some positions in pawnless endgames. I think there was actually 2 knights against a pawn, and then there was 2 bishops against a knight, and then the computers analyzed all sorts of weird, positions where you need 100 moves, 200 moves, and then, but the thing is that the 50 move rule was not set in place with the idea that if the position cannot be won in 50 moves, then it must be a draw. No, not. It was set in terms of simply human endurance, and also for the convenience of other participants of chess tournaments. We can't really let games drag forever unless we severely limit the time control, which we already done. And that obviously puts older players in a disadvantage. Well, I gotta tell you, Magnus has done absolutely nothing walking around, for 40 moves. Now, he probably could have won that pawn on e5 earlier if he wanted to. He obviously didn't want to. So his going around was not really trying to win, it was just marking time and hoping that the older player, will get tired and will self-destruct. I understand that's a viable strategy, and well, all is fair in love and war, and of course in chess as well. But, Mr. Carlsen, let me get back to you with this. Some 15 years down the road, when you're 40 years old, let's see if you would think that this is the proper way to play chess. Right now it's all nice, all fun and games. Alright, now I want to say something about this endgame. I think Topalov set himself for failure here simply by playing this move. I understand that this move is recommended by every computer under the sun because it retains the pawn on e5 and it maintains the material. Yet, with the eye on that rook endgame after black wins the pawn on e5, I would recommend the white just to go rook a8. I actually recommended this during live broadcast. And I would say fine, my colleague Ronan said, yeah, but don't you remember, Alex, that Magnus won that endgame against Ponomarev, rook endgame and 4-on-4? Well, maybe he won it because Ponomarev held on to a pawn. You can lose a lot of rook endgames if you hold on to a bad pawn, which makes your rook passive. Now, in this position, I mean, right now, if it happens right after the time control, at move 41, well, the main thing here is that the white rook attacks from behind. That's a very typical method. And that simply doesn't give black a chance to do anything with the king. Now, you play a waiting move, and then here, well, if you go forward, you're not going to win because white counterattacks f7 as well. You can play here rook g6, rook e7, rook f7, anything draws here. So therefore, I mean, seriously, this position, in my time when I played tournaments, is simply, they weren't even played. Because obviously, we had adjournments and at least we didn't have sudden death, but even, I don't know, I think it's also some kind of attitude thing, I don't know. It's a big statement I'm about to make, but I will make it nonetheless. Well, I played chess for 45 years, and I was on the defensive side of endgames like this many times. I've never lost a single one. It's just really, there are limits, of what a strong player can do with the advantage. And all the stuff is talk about torture and playing this for 100 moves or 500 moves. It's all just talk. It depends on your attitude. If you simply approach this situation like, okay, I'm down a pawn, but I'm gonna make a draw, you don't feel tortured. You know, maybe your opponent will be tortured by his need to win the game. And Magnus needed a win. So this is my important comment on this whole thing, you know. So here, when Topalov played rook f4, he condemned himself to 50 moves of going around, you know, randomly trying to avoid some simple blunders. Yes, he did. I give him credit to that. So he did. Oops. Sorry. He avoided. Okay, let me go back to the whole thing. Okay, so now he avoided those blunders. Held on for 45 moves, and finally Magnus took. Now, this situation, actually, it's even... it's probably little more favorable for black. The white king is cut off from the pawns on the king's side. It didn't matter, because he was able to get the rook out. No, pawns just get exchanged. No, there's nothing to play for. They agree to a draw in a few moves. Anyway, so this whole thing, you know, to me, didn't have much sense chess-wise. I mean, I understand that these days people supposed to play every position out to the end, and it's part of being a professional player these days. I don't know if he's getting a lot of wins, you know, like he used to, but look, you know, we look at the ratios of success, but we shouldn't forget, you know, that misses also. I mean, Magnus is the best player in the world when it comes to playing better endgames. Yet in this same tournament, he let Anand and Adams off the hook in endgames that he would have won a year ago or 2 years ago. Now, it's not even about a spectacular way of winning games. I think it's all caused also by the fact that he faces same people again and again. Now, toward the second half of our meeting today, I'll be talking about how Magnus plays in the ongoing tournament in Qatar, and you will see that he plays absolutely different kind of chess. You know, because he's out there playing some random guys, you know, which is not only that they're weaker, you know, that's obvious, but I mean, it's just more fun. So you don't have to sit there and then just think about facing the same person, you know, for the umpteenth time, and it's very difficult to do. Well, anyway, next question was, because we're doing a bunch of questions, was the Vasheva Graf game. Okay, yeah. All right. Now, this was the rapid game. So the way it worked out after the end of the regulation 9 rounds at the London tournament, there were 3 players in a tie for first place. Now, it was, apparently it was Garry Kasparov, right? If he says that his idea, but, I mean, does it mean that Kasparov, thought of every rule in this Grand Chess Tour, including all the tie breaks procedures, and maybe it's just below him, maybe he's too much of a man of vision to bother with little trifle details. When he played chess, he didn't have to worry about tie breaks. He would finish 3 points again ahead of the next guy. I understand. Hi, Eddie. Yeah, but on the one hand, you know, well, they don't share Grand Tour points in a tie between whatever. There was a tie from 2nd place to what? 6th place in St. Louis, and Magnus, because of the number of wins, number of losses, got points for 2nd place. I mean, seriously, the difference is huge. I mean, I know of no Grand Prix series ever played where the points wouldn't be equally spread between the equally shared between the players in a tie. I mean, okay. Yet, when it came to end of this tournament, they said they had to break a tie between 3 players. So they looked at Sonnenberg-Berger system, which is like the most outdated tiebreak you can think of. Like, I mean, for short tournaments, it only made sense when they played tournaments of 16 or 18 players. Then indeed there would be difference if you beat the stronger guys or beat the weaker guys. In this tournament, everybody was beaten on Topalov and occasionally on Anand. I mean, how can... It's just one random game. So Grishuk blunders twice. First he misses a win, then he misses a draw. And it's because of that, that by default gives Magnus better tiebreaks. Because of Sonnenberg-Berger. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, so Magnus, because of that, is relieved from the preliminary stage of the tiebreak. And the other 2 guys, Giri and MVL, set to play each other. Giri, by the way, is second on tiebreaks, and MVL is third. More of that later. So these guys play 2 rapid games. Yeah, and they split them, because first Giri wins, then he just has to make a draw, but he cannot make a draw with white, as it happens sometimes. MVL ties up the score, and then they play a blitz game, sort of, I don't know, it was Armageddon probably, and MVL wins it. Now, mind it, so that's already like 3 games. And that's going on the same day the last round was played. Now, MVL has to play Carlsen. Interestingly enough, when Carlsen beat him, first of all, I can never accept any kind of tiebreak system that would make some people play more games than others. You just can't do this. If it's a playoff thing, then everybody has to start from scratch. Well, fine. Look, you have next day and then the day after, whatever, Well, 3 people in a tie, let them all play all, whatever it takes. I just, either you just give it to a guy because of whatever tie breaks, or because, toss a coin. But, I mean, whatever, you toss the coin, you win, you Smyslov, your opponent is whatever, Ribley or whoever it was. But, I mean, this was totally wrong, I was watching this thing live, and I saw that MVL simply had no gas in the tank. He couldn't keep his head straight. He was going like this after every move. And you can't possibly hope, to play your best, in rapid chess when you're simply exhausted like this. Interestingly enough, so after Magnus beat him, well, then they said, okay, so now Giri has better tiebreaks, so he gets the second place by points in the London tournament, and MVL gets third place by points, and therefore Giri is second in the overall, and MVL is third in the overall. Pardon me, people. Well, the guy who you say is third just beat the guy who said was second in the goddamn playoff. What is going on there? Well, what sense does it make? Alright, we'll talk about Li Chao. Now, I'm just gonna end with this, really. I'm so mad, and now guess what they're saying? That MVL didn't get the third place in overall thing. He somehow got edged by Aronian, somehow. And now MVL is not even in the lineup for the next year Grand Chess Tour thing. He just got robbed, We was robbed. This is disgusting, You have a guy, who they made him play these games. He loses the first game, wins on demand with black against Giri, beats him in the Armageddon game, and yet, he gets nothing for that. Finishes behind Giri in the tournament. What sense does it make? Now, this is disgusting. Now, I don't know what MVL is gonna do about this. Probably nothing. And, well, at least I can tell you one thing, guys. I don't know, whatever it is, I do not see this Grand Chess Tour to take place the same way it did this year, next year. For a simple reason. because between the Sinquefield Cup and the London tournament is going to be a World Championship match. One guy is going to be involved in that. His name is Magnus Carlsen. And the other guy most likely is going to be among the selected 9 players for the Grand Chess Tour. I don't see them, honoring their commitments, playing a difficult tournament just maybe a month before the World Championship starts, and then playing another tournament less than a month after the World Championship match ends. Now, this is not going to happen. So whatever it is, there are going to be some changes. All right. Even Nakamura is with me. Okay. Now, yet, all the same, we need to talk about chess, and I have this position in the endgame. Now, this is the first rapid game. So now they play 2 rapid games. So this is some 25 minutes with 10-second increment. Now, there are hardly any pieces left on the board, and Magnus is trying to win. He has a passed pawn, but so little pawns on the board. Now, how do we approach this, and how are we gonna make a draw here? Okay, 1 sec. Yeah. Alright, so the usual strategy that we drag it for as long as we can, but then we give up our rook for the d pawn, and we make a draw with our king and the king side pawn or pawns. Yeah. Okay, I will answer some of these things about Li Chao and about Wei Yi. That's interesting. I have something to say there. But first about this. Now, normally you should bring the king. You don't want to separate your king from pawns. Now, the move h4 that was played by MVL just looks bad because it allows g4. Now, this is not some kind of a king and pawn endgame where protected pass pawns, they have some kind of intrinsic value. Here it's all about activating the king. And now I can see the barrier on the path of this king. That means that reaching the draw in a normal way is no longer going to be possible. Now, the normal way. You should bring the king over there. Now, okay, there is this one line that apparently could make black nervous. And that's this one. Now we move the king to f6, so we cannot get the king back to d8. So therefore this check is forced. And now there is gonna be a bit of calculation done here. Okay, let's do this. King forward. Now if king d6, I move up, you go there, I take. How you wanna take it? Rook takes. Maybe I should play h3, h4. Maybe I don't need this pawn. Okay. Take. Just enough to make a draw, because you cannot force me to under promote to a knight. If it was white's move here, then rook d2 wins, because then king g1 and then king g3, and I have to under promote. But right now, after king g4, I queen, and you must give 2 checks and make a draw. Well, when it looks like it's shaky because it's just by one move, no, that's how it is. But chess players with experience, they've done this so many times, in their blitz games, this kind of stuff in rook end games, that you kind of can't help it, but you develop some kind of supernatural feel for this, and you can almost always say if it's a win or a draw. Yeah, I saw well, he's not having a good tournament, that's for sure. Well, we'll talk about this a little later. I want to finish with this. So now, this is basically the way to make a draw, a king f6. The most generic, the one that it's been done, many times before. Now, another one. Yeah, you can do this check. There is something about this check that makes you feel, indeed, little safer. There are no tricks with king c3 and rook d3. And now play this. Same thing. You're gonna bring your king to f5, king to g4, play h4. That's all you need. Don't play h4 when he can play g4 and lock your king out. Now, you may ask me, what's the deal with this move? Isn't it the same? Now, there is some difference. It's really not the same. In this position, when you compare it with the game continuation, first of all, king a8 draws immediately, because in this position, black has this check, saving the pawn, and then king takes. And then white maybe can win the pawn on h5, but he cannot do it this way. It's also to prevent the black king from coming to g7. So this is a dead draw. And also, you can actually play this move. That looks strange because, we're not making a passed pawn. But the point of this move is make the white king to go longer before he grabs the pawn. And then that, and also keep the white pawn on g3, not on g4 as in the game, which makes it one tempo short of winning some theoretically won positions. I know king e5 looks weak, but king c5, you play king c5 in blitz, but you don't really hope to win this. It's impossible. I mean, what hopes do you have to win this? Zero. He's already there and your king is going to be on d8. You can never win like this. Something had to be done, like something like what? Rook e4 here, there, and maybe rook a4. Right, so you're looking for this thing, h4, and then to answer it with g4. No, obviously it doesn't work, simply because there is this move. You're not advanced enough, now your d-pawn is in danger. I mean, all in all, this was an elementary draw, but look at this. Now, the draw is still there, but it's not elementary, and it requires some pretty firm grasp of basic rook endgames. By basic, I mean rook and pawn versus rook. Now, this is played, and now you see what the problem is. The rook actually attacks the pawn, so you can't come off without losing the pawn. So he played this. Now Magnus plays d7, which is correct. This is forced. Obviously, this wouldn't have worked. Oh, great Magnus, he saw this king and pawn endgame, so he takes this pawn before the black king can get to g7. So that's good. So therefore, king e7 was played. Now king f5 discovered check, and now he takes the pawn. Now we in a very tricky territory here, guys, because the black rook is very passive. It can't come off because the white king is sheltered by the g pawn. The white king, of course, is not gonna step on the f file. That's what the h file is for. I'm sure MVL was frustrated out of his wits. He was ahead on the clock. Magnus was very low on time. And then, literally, in 2 moves, he ended up in a position he didn't have to be in. And he was tired, and this match with Giri and all that, No, I understand. But that's why you study those endgames. Well, you study those endgames not because, you think, when I'm at my best and I'm playing the most comfortable... in my most comfortable condition, then I will be showing off my great theoretical knowledge. No. If you're in perfect condition, and you're MVL, you will find this over the board. The problem is that you're not always going to be in perfect condition. You're going to be tired, you're going to be angry with yourself, you're going to be frustrated, what. And then only knowledge that is literally was just pounded into your thick head can save you. You will not be able to find anything at the board. He tried, and look what he did. In this position, he played rook f1. Losing move! How to make a draw? Frontal attack. Only. That's your frontal attack. Now, you can see, of course, that there is some inconvenience there with the white rook on h3. So he needs to get the rook out of h3. g5 doesn't do it. I will trade rooks and then I can get my king in front of the pawn. Why is Naka not participating in Qatar? He's gonna play Gibraltar. I know. Well, he needs some rest, you know. Nakamura had a very long year. He played a lot of chess. Don't forget his match with Caruana, his Millionaire Open. He won somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000, and you want him to go and play every random open? I think he deserves some rest. Now, after this move, we agree that you need to get the rook out. Now, if you cut off the king as by the book, then start the checks before the white pawn gets to g5, before the distance becomes too short. Now you can see that the king cannot approach the rook. It has to go back. Once the king is driven behind the pawn, you play rook in front of the pawn to stop g5. You absolutely have to stop this pawn from crossing your midfield, otherwise you won't be able to defend with these checks. So the opponent plays rook e4 to protect that pawn and set up the king for a run, and that's when you hit that rook with the king. And this is a theoretical draw, known for I don't know how many years. Now that's the problem, you know, like I don't know what it is. Who's in charge over there and why, but somebody has to put his foot down. And these guys are grandmasters, right? The coaches. You know, they should say, you know what? I understand you work on openings and all that. I want you to spend X number of hours, you know, X amount of time simply going through the endgames from one to another. You must do this because it's going to happen in your game at the worst moment possible. And then you won't be able to find it at the board. Repeat it, you know, until steam begins to come out of your ears. Then you really can do this. Now, at this moment, okay, after rook h3, rook a8. Now, oops. Okay, I'll go back there. Okay, so start again. This, that. Check. King e7. g5. Almost there. And then comes this. Alright, there is a stronger move than g5. There is this move. No, somewhat stronger. But then there. The only move to stop king g8. King f6. No, draw agreed now. There is no more. No other possibilities to improve. Anyway. Rook f1. Now, why is it different? No, after he took the rook on g3. If you do the same thing, look out, check, and another check, and guess what? You cannot come to the f-file. So you lose a tempo, and then comes g5, and your frontal attack comes to nothing. And we all tried to save the game with the king, and maybe he thought... No, I mean, such a brilliant player he is. Being tired, you know, and toward the end of this rapid game, and literally operating with seconds, well, he was able to find this concept. But then he was about to play rook f1, and it seems like it's a draw, right? Because the king is about to get in front of the pawn. But it's not. Check, and then this. Rook h8 is threatening to remove the king from the path of the g-pawn, and then g5, and it's already a win. And on this one, check. Unbelievable. Rook f7. Magnus saw it. White would have won. One last move was played, and now Magnus plays this, and of course, well, now too late, because on rook a8, play the correct move. Not king g6, which would allow the check, but king h6. And now g5, white is assured of g5. And he wins this game. Amazing. That really is amazing. Alright, so... Okay, but this is like very long time ago, right? This London tournament. Oh, by the way, I want to return to this line. Okay, something just clicked in my mind. Okay, so let's do this again. I have this king on h6. I'll do it differently. Okay, so we go back. We're gonna do the right move. Okay, so he goes king h5. We're gonna do this. He takes. There. He gives check and goes king h6. You know what? I'm not gonna go king f7. I like this move much more. I think this move makes more sense to me. Because in reply to this, I wanna do this check. It's a sure way, to get in front of the g pawn, because on this, of course, I come up, and we just repeat. Yeah, king f8 is more accurate. Okay. Yep. So anyway, this is all ancient history, What do we care, This London tournament is in the books. Important is the ongoing event, the Qatar Open. Okay, Nakamura is not there. I already gave my opinion on why he isn't there, but they have pretty decent field, obviously. Anish Giri, by the way, Anish is number 2 in the world now. Well, it's still some kind of a game of musical chairs, and they win some, they lose some, but Anish seems to be, first of all, he's the youngest, and he just wrote a book. What's the title of the book? Kinda chess beyond Magnus Carlsen, or who's gonna beat Magnus Carlsen? He really set his sights, as the young man should, on the heights, that was never scaled before. So he's there, and he's playing well. Vladimir Kramnik, world number 3. And, a bunch of strong players there, Mamedyanov, and, every round brings a lot of interesting games. Now, there are a few upsets there. Magnus himself couldn't win in the first round. He played this girl from the Georgian Olympic team. She's a pretty good player, and she actually played extremely well. At some moment, I thought she was about to start playing for a win. After Magnus. Yeah, okay. Alright, after Magnus. Well, yeah, I'm telling you, you don't want to get on Anish's wrong side, He'll find a way of needling you, He's pretty good, with verbal insults, that's for sure. Magnus is 25 years old. Why write a book after Magnus? Wait till the guy, I don't know, at least reaches middle age. That's amazing. Yeah, with Wei, he gets destroyed by this guy, and you said, oh, it's an Indian GM of rated 25. This guy is like major talent, Gagara. I think he's... I think he's barely 20 years old. I think it's about, Giri's age or something. And he's really coming coming around as a strong player. And he played extremely interesting games. If you guys gonna watch this guy in action, don't look at his today's game with Ivanchuk. Well, I guess he just wanted to make a draw against the famous Vasily. But the game he played against Huyo Fan was amazing. Such concept as Gagarin fellow found sacrificed a piece in the endgame. Really put the female world champion Huyo Fan on the ropes, but she defended extremely well and it was a draw in the end, I think. There's some other interesting results, but I want to concentrate on Magnus, so let me just show you a couple of games that Magnus played. Hang on. In round 2, he plays this 2486 guy. Aravind. I mean, that's what Magnus wanted, you know. Well, nobody plays b3 against them. All these guys, you know, they just sit there. They rely on their theoretical variations, and they're experienced. And Magnus knows that if he makes a misstep, you know, he may lose, and then it just everybody's gonna continue questioning him. And I mean, it's difficult to facing the same people again and again. But here, Magnus is unleashed. He even plays g6. I mean, he could have played knight f6 first. He just plays g6 and then knight f6. Interesting concept. You don't think that white should have taken here. That would be interesting. Try to grab a hold of the d5 square. I would probably do this if I were white. But I think Magnus just wanted an unusual position. And it's not about his opponent being a little weaker. It just... his opponent is played b3 on move 2. This is chess. You know, not some endless repetition of the Berlin lines. I don't know if g6 is theory. Magnus just made it theory. Play this position, it's interesting. Give up d5 square, play your bishop to g7. Play f5. Play all over the board. Crying out loud. Play f5 here, sacrifice a pawn. I mean, that's what Magnus wanted when he wrote this tweet, you know, that, oh, well, I think in the future world championships should be played like this. And then his manager, you know, went into damage control. You know, Magnus Carlsen didn't really mean that, you know. Magnus wants to play only world championship matches with guaranteed millions of dollars so that he can keep us happy. Yeah, ass. I gotta tell you, you know, like, when Magnus plays here, you know, he came alive. You know, and I'm really glad, you know, that this Grand Chess Tour for him, at least it's over until whatever, you know. So you can play a couple of opens like this, you know, and just simply have fun. Anyway, in this game, I don't think that was a good idea. And actually, White, I don't know this player, but I assume he's young, spent a lot of time on e6 and probably was a bad choice. I mean, the pawn probably had to be over there, you know. I would rather be thinking of something like c4 and maybe d4. Maybe I can keep the pawn on e5. And now Magnus just goes for... he just goes for the Maraxi bind. He doesn't mind all this lag and development and all this difficulties there, you know. He wants to impose his will on the opponent. And I mean, White plays interesting, unusual way. But White, I mean, Black has to be, yeah. Black has to be better somewhat here. Yeah, 40 minutes. Giri thinks he's more charming. I don't know. I hate to be a mirror, you know, in Giri's house. You know, I'll get too much attention. I don't want to be the mirror in Giri's house. Yeah, that's a nice bind over there. That's a nice bind with the knight going over there. But, well, maybe Magnus's game was little off here. I'm not sure. For example, I mean, he went b5. No, it's nice to attack all over the board, but maybe it was a little premature. Maybe some more care should be given, but Magnus just wanted to play chess, and he didn't want to overthink on every move. Went for this attack. Maybe a4 had to be played, because now he gave up the c4 square. So maybe, obviously, it wasn't the most accurate. Now white, I think, is pretty close to equality here. But then, attack on the h file. And here g5, so it came to the critical moment of the game. I mean, what Magnus did here, I don't know if it was forced, probably not. Well, it's very risky. But he was able to see deep, and I think black was not worse. In no line, but this thing is actually a pawn sacrifice, because you can never take this pawn on account of rook takes f4. So he had to play this to protect his pawn on e5, right? Then white, of course, does this, and on g5 went knight d5. Brought the knight over there. It's a very bad idea for black to take on d5 twice, because it opens the f file in support of the passed pawn. So Magnus is down a pawn, and it's like, oh, horror. He drew the Georgian girl in round 1, and now he may lose this one to an unknown 2486 player, and it's like, that's the end of Magnus Carlsen, and that's it, and I mean, that's the end of the era. Everybody plays g6 against him, even people that normally doesn't play it. That's what Kramnik said? G6? Yeah, I think this... Well, I'm not sure about Castle's long Eddie Bauer. Maybe the king should have been kept in the center. I just hate giving up the c4 square. There was no reason to do this. Maybe b5 was okay. Maybe a5. But I mean, Magnus just played... He played reasonably quickly and... wanted to play intuitively and not to overthink, because this is how you regain your passion for chess. Otherwise, chess can become a chore, and I think it became a chore for Magnus with all these tournaments and facing Anand for I don't know how many times a year. Well, so anyway, okay, but I made this point already. But now, I mean, how do you recover from this? Magnus just like nothing happens, you know. He prepares to move his g-pawn forward. And now I think came a kind of critical moment in the game. White absolutely had to play this move. You know why? Because he needs to use this rook. So he needs to step away from the fork. Now, in this situation, no, it's not entirely clear, you know, how to proceed, because no, the pawn cannot move forward on account of check followed by capturing that rook. And you can't, so the g-pawn is kind of pinned, you know, and the rook cannot go away and give it up, I assume. Or maybe it can, because then there is a back rank mate. But you're not really making any threats yet. So I think this is a balanced position, probably. I assume that Magnus is not worse here. I hope that he's not worse here. Yeah, indeed, he needs to move that rook away and then try to play g2. Suppose he plays rook h7. Alright, guys, I need some help here. What's gonna happen now? What's next move? f7. Well, if you take with the rook, then he takes on g3. No, okay, that's a draw. We're gonna trade and we're gonna take on d5. Twice and regain material. If you take with the king, he's got this, right? This could be dangerous for black because he's down a pawn and the g pawn is not going anywhere. No, I prefer the previous line. Take with the rook on f7. Yeah, that probably had to come down to this, but Magnus got rewarded for his persistence and risk taken in this game, because his opponent finally played like a 2486. I'm 2486, I guess now. You know, I should know. I should know how 2486 plays. He played rook g4. That's a mistake. A tempo. Then pawn forward. And now, if there, then the pawn goes to g3 because of the fork. You mean, yeah, but I think it's a draw. Well, that bishop endgame. Okay, maybe white can, I don't know. Black has so much space. You know, he should be able to protect his pawns on dark squares. I don't think that would be possible to win. We're talking about a position where the f and g pawns are exchanged and black wins the pawn on d5 and keeps the king in the middle. I think it's a draw. But in this line, it's not a draw because of that fork on e2. Magnus was able to push his pawn forward, and that was it. Actually, knight e3 was played instead, but this goes forward. And that's not gonna do anything. Once again, gee. That's your Magnus Carlsen. Instead of playing those boring endgames and trying to beat an old man Topalov by a 100-move rule, Magnus finds tricks like this and wins games. That's Magnus Unleashed. Yeah, Aravind didn't fall into this. He played f7, but rook g6. Such nerve, eh? Everything's controlled, everything's protected. You cannot deflect the black pieces because the bishop stops the pawn as well. g2. Actually, white is worse here. Maybe not lost yet, but he lost on time. Okay, Magnus beats people on time. Small revenge for losing on time to Topalov, but no, well, better this. Today's game was amazing, right, against Li Chao. He played a fantastic game. Now, but Li Chao is an interesting fellow. He never played any super tournaments. Got to 2750, and a very interesting player he is. I know from somebody, because I never met Mr. Li Chao, that Li Chao had a job at the Beijing University, teaching a chess team over there, so he didn't consider himself a professional player for quite some time. So he got this job when he's still very young. So maybe it gave him some kind of security and didn't have to worry about rating points so much. Well, he plays interesting chess, but I would, however, I don't know, with some reservations, I would say that probably he hasn't been tested yet on his openings and all that. We saw what happened to Ding Lijian. Well, he got his rating up to 2780, and then he didn't get nothing, you know, no invitations, thanks to Garry Kasparov and his the circling of the wagons, you know, basically just shutting out, you know, like this, shutting the door, you know, on all people everywhere in the world, you know, and restricting this whole thing, you know, to a circus of 9 participants. Now, the Ding, and Wei also, that's another part of it. These guys, well, they need to play, right? And there's nowhere for them to play. And maybe it would have been better if they didn't play. Then they started playing each other. So they created a kind of alternative universe there in China. Played each other, you know, in all these competitions. This cup, this Grand Prix, that event, I don't know. Well, their league is They all play in the Chinese league and they play each other 26 times, or literally. Now, as the result, like when you have this thing, you breed nothing but parity. Now, Capablanca would not have improved as a chess player if he was kept in Cuba, playing Cuban guys, all the time. Kasparov, Karpov, everybody, like it was always like leave that, marsh, over there, that bog, just rise up over it, and meet with new challenge and look forward. And besides, these guys, I don't know, they're tough guys. So in the end, Wei now it just doesn't look the same. Is he already over the hill at 17? He's not even 17. In this tournament, he doesn't play well. Dropped his rating down to непомнящий level. By the way, that's an example of a major talent that for one reason or another was just not given an opportunity to blossom. It was just suffocated and after a while, the results begin to drop a little bit, and then everybody says, see, that's why we didn't want to do anything, because he's not really that good. Of course. Anyway, I hope, that the Chinese Chess Federation finds some other way, to keep their best players busy, because they shouldn't be playing each other all the time. Nobody benefits from this. I understand, it's hard to break through into the Grand Chess Tour and other tournaments, but I mean, they have to try. Yeah, Magnus, Giri, Kramnik, Wesley, so... No, there are some others over there. They're still in the... Obviously, Mamediyarov there. Well, it's too early to talk about anything, because Magnus got off a huge start, 4.5 out of 5, leading the tournament outright. But there is like 9 guys chasing him with 4 points. And remember last year, Kramnik was leading because he won like 6 in a row or whatever. Then Giri won 6 in a row. And then in the end, Yu Yani, who's by the way in the running again, beat them both, and he captured first place. We don't really know. Mamedyarov's win over Lenderman was amazing, and also Mamedyarov's win today over Hizmatulin was an absolute, roller coaster ride. This position was so strange. Mamedyarov plays really interesting chess. But today's show belongs to Magnus Carlsen, so let me give you one more. This is, I believe, from round 3, and his opponent is the young Russian Grandmaster, I assume, or maybe International Master, Daniel Yufa. Only rated 2500, but he's young. He's certainly younger than 20. Magnus. And guess what? Yufa had played this line before. Magnus, you know what? Magnus, who didn't want to prepare, who said, well, yeah, Giri, I told him, Giri's going to spend 36 hours preparing for you. Said, and he said, I'm gonna go watch a soccer game, and then I'll play some garbage as I usually do. Because he's sick and tired of preparing for these guys. But he prepared for Yufa. Yufa played this before. And Magnus played this move d5 here, which is not the only move. A lot of people play bishop e3. Previously in his game, the young Yufa, I think, put the knight on a5, and then he played c5. I'm sure Magnus was ready for that. But here he decided to play differently, and I think that's an inferior line. Now, there was an old game, played some, 15 years ago, maybe more, by my friend, unfortunately he died, years ago, Alex Yermolinsky, the extremely talented, Latvian, Polish, American, whatever you call him, real man of the world he was. Very popular grandmaster in the United States. And he showed how white does it. And actually Magnus repeated Wojtkevich's moves. Now that forces c5. Now you take. Now you get some kind of a, just like a Maraxi bind, but this pawn is not on e4, maybe for the better, because it doesn't restrict the light square bishop. And this is Magnus's novelty. Actually, Wojtkiewicz played queen d2 and played the same thing. He just moved the rook away and then kept his position solid with b3 and eventually broke through with the attack on the king side. Magnus's play maybe is stronger, but the ideas were pretty much all mapped out by Wojtkiewicz in that game. So now suddenly Magnus has the hunger to study chess. Oh yeah, well, we all remember. It's a great friend of mine he was for so many years, beginning with those days in Leningrad. No, we actually first time met, played a tournament in Estonia in Pärnu. Wojtkiewicz was 19 years old. I'm slightly older than him by 5 years. So that's how far back we go. Well, great times. I'll drink to my good friend Alex Wojtkiewicz. Rest in peace. All right. Okay, so here we go. h4. Now, what gives white grounds, for this sharp kingside attack? Well, I guess black is having a hard time moving his pawns in the center. Well, Yufa tried. So he played his queen to b6 and this. So he wanted to restrict b4. But then, feeling this pressure and also the danger of the rook moving to h4 potentially, he played d5. Now, this is probably not a happy decision because it weakens the white squares a lot. The knight can come to d4, but opposite cover bishop positions may not be very safe. And besides, look what Magnus prepared. He prepared the sacrifice on d4. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't matter if black simply played bishop h8, because I think this sacrifice would be played anyway. You can just do it this way. There's a mate on g7. And of course, if you take, and then play f5 to establish some kind of defense over there, white will play this with the decisive shot with the bishop, followed by queen h8. Well, it shouldn't be a great surprise when, okay, some 2400 player. Okay, we're talking 300 rating points difference. Okay, that's 84%. Okay, but at 84%, it means it's like 34 between a win and a draw. I mean, it's supposed to happen once out of 3 times, right? We almost think that it's a given fact that a 2700 will beat a 2600 guy. I mean, he's only supposed to score 64%. Well, I know these guys are better and they play like it because they lead in the tournament. Carlsen, Giri, Kramnik. No, but it's not easy. Kramnik was lost against Daniel Vakatura. Absolutely lost in that game. Was down 3 points. Luckily escaped it, and now he's in his grinding style. Defeated today an amazing position. I didn't think it would be possible for him to win, but he worked it for so many moves and defeated a pretty strong young grandmaster from Russia, Matlakov. So Kramnik's doing well, but nonetheless, nothing's guaranteed. Well, so that's the beauty of this tournament, and I'm glad, it's there. So anyway, Magnus's idea was to do this. And Yufa forced the issue with this. Now comes the sacrifice. And now I ask you, how come Magnus doesn't play like this in London? The obvious answer is that the opposition is very strong. Well, yeah, but they don't play King's Indian. That's another reason. But nonetheless, I'm happy to see Magnus playing like this. Okay, in this position, I think after bishop f8, it's just hopeless. There is no way you can defend this position against the raging bishops. My suggestion would be to do this. Now, this is the threat, right? f4 and bishop d5. 1 out of 3, yeah. F4 is the move. Whatever it takes to keep that bishop from coming to d5. And then I was thinking, here, okay. Maybe queen c5. Thinking of coming to e2. If this, I got queen e5 defending. I don't know, it makes sense to me. No, white has 2 pawns for the exchange and probably white's for choice, but no, there are some chances here. Yeah, Yufa didn't find it. He went bishop f8. That's a bad move. Now Magnus steps back, thinking of doing the battery over there. Queen takes c4 is forced. And now this. Check. Now rook e4 absolutely is the only move. And indeed, you know, if you don't calculate very well here, you may think that white is on the wrong track because he lost a pawn and it's not enough for him to get the exchange back. The queen controls the d4 square. How to proceed? And then Magnus shows. The important thing after b3 is that the queen goes anywhere else. Capture followed by queen d4 is going to do it. You see, when you do this, okay, here there's going to be one more move included. So, okay, anyway, the point is that on this there is always check, and I either take the rook, or if I take the pawn and the bishop, I have a very pleasant choice. So Yufa played queen c5, and now bishop a1. Nice, deep retreat. It's almost like you see this in problems, right? When you have to pull a piece back to make a battery with the stronger piece forward. I mean, it's amazing that bishop a1. Magnus is just, everything just came back after this. You see, he didn't have to play for 100 moves. d5 and now rook c1. That pushes the queen away, and either d5 pawn is going to be taken, like in this chop, that's going to be mate. Or if the queen goes more accurately, say here, then I'm going to take, and now I've got the diagonal. Beautiful win by Magnus Carlsen. His opponent, the young Daniel Yufa, resigned here, and I'm sure that's the game he will remember for a long time. Okay, youngster, this is how they play here in the big leagues. All right, guys. So basically, I'm looking at this whole thing very positively now. Well, I think that Magnus broke out of this funk. You know, he's really playing great chess, and I look forward to YKZ tournament and you know, some other stuff. You know, well, I apologize if I upset anybody by being overly critical of the Grand Chess Tour thing. You know, I know that. I mean, it's not. I would be lying to you if I didn't enjoy following the tournaments, but I know we can do better than this, and I hope in the future things will somehow work out to satisfy both, you know, the need for established players to maintain their social status and their earning potential, not potential, the earning ability, and also for the young players, you know, to break in and get their chance. Why don't we have much Canadians in the big league of chess? Now you have this guy Kovalyov. Does he still represent Canada? He lived in Argentina for many years, a young guy. He actually studies in the US. But the question probably should be addressed to Kevin Spraggett. You know, why is this guy, you know, who was the best Canadian player since Abe Yanovsky, why would he move to Portugal? Maybe you could answer this. Alright, guys, anyway. Too many questions, too little time, and most importantly, you know, well, Merry Christmas and, well, Happy New Year, you know. I'll see you again probably. Oh, yeah, for sure I'll see you again in 2016, right? Well, this show is run every Thursday, and then, not every Thursday, every other Thursday, the 2 weeks in between. So this is it, you know. Well, all right. Once again, you know, Happy New Year and Merry Christmas to all of you. Perel Stein now is Canadian. Oh boy. Haven't talked to Eugene in about a few months, but... Alright, guys, anyway. You take care.